This video is not an accident. Out of millions of distractions, you ended up here. Think about that for a moment. With all the noise flooding your life, with all the random paths your attention could have taken, you still arrived here. In front of these words. That is not coincidence. That is resonance. The quantum field works with precision. It sends signals, and when the frequency is right, you receive them. That is why you are here. You didn't just click, you were pulled. Something inside you matched the frequency of this message, and the field brought you to it. And here's the part you don't realize. The moment you tuned into this signal, your frequency started shifting. Your breath isn't the same as it was a minute ago. Your mind isn't wandering the way it was before. You are focused, alert, curious. That is evidence. Small, subtle, but real. The shift has already begun, so don't think you are about to change. You already have. The question is not whether the shift is possible. The question is, will you allow it to continue, or will you collapse back into the old timeline? If this video is a signal, then what exactly is it signaling you away from? The answer is uncomfortable but undeniable. It is pulling you away from the prison you didn't even know you were in. Most people walk through life under the illusion that things are moving forward. They wake up, go through the same motions, mark another day off the calendar, and convince themselves they are making progress simply because time is passing. But time itself does not guarantee movement. The fact that years have gone by does not mean that you have evolved. Let's be brutally honest. How much of your life is truly new? How much has actually changed in a way that is fundamental, transformative, undeniable? And how much of it is simply repetition? The same emotions wearing different masks, the same failures dressed in new circumstances, the same disappointments with new names attached. The evidence is everywhere if you dare to look at it without denial. You may change jobs, change cities, even change relationships, and yet somehow the same patterns return. The faces are different, the locations are different, the surface details shift, but underneath, it's the same script playing again and again. Why does this happen? Why do people who swear they will never repeat the same mistake find themselves in the exact same trap a year later? Why do people who claim they want freedom end up chained to the same fears? Why does the future so often look exactly like the past? Science has already given us the first clue. Neuroscience shows that over 90% of the thoughts you think today are identical to those you thought yesterday, which means that for most people, tomorrow is not new, tomorrow is recycled. The brain is a machine of repetition, constantly replaying old patterns, old beliefs, old memories. Now connect this with what we know from quantum physics. The field responds with absolute precision to what you broadcast. It does not respond to your words, your promises, or your surface-level intentions. It responds to your actual frequency. And if your body and mind are broadcasting the same signal they did yesterday, the field has no choice but to collapse the same reality again today. This is why your life feels stuck. It's not bad luck. It's not fate. It's not even external resistance. It is collapse, your own repetition, mirrored back to you with brutal accuracy by the field itself. And here is the darker truth. Your body is addicted to this. Your nervous system is programmed to expect the same chemical reactions, the same emotions, the same cycle. Fear, anger, shame, scarcity, these are not just feelings, they are biochemical signatures. And just like a drug, your body craves them. Which means even when you say you want change, your biology is secretly pulling you back into the loop of yesterday. Every thought you repeat is a vote for the old self. Every emotion you replay is a command to the field, give me more of this. And the field obeys instantly, without hesitation, without judgment. This is why you can feel trapped even while working hard, even while chasing goals, even while trying to move forward. Because the future is not created by what you plan to do tomorrow. It is being collapsed now, in this very second, by the signal you are transmitting unconsciously. Think about it carefully. How many times have you said to yourself, "This time it will be different"? How many times have you started fresh, a new job, a new relationship, a new project, convinced that change was finally here? And yet, months later you find yourself in the same emotional landscape as before. Different scenery, same story. That is not coincidence. That is collapse. The prison is not external, it is internal. It lives in your signal, in the frequency you have been unconsciously repeating every day. And until that broadcast changes, the field has no choice but to mirror it back. But here's the most disturbing part. Because the prison is invisible, most people never notice it. They confuse repetition with progress. They convince themselves that going through the motions is enough. They decorate the walls of the prison and call it comfort. They polish the bars of the cage and call it stability. They recycle the same year 10, 20, 30 times and call it a life. And in the end, they look back and wonder why nothing ever really changed. This is the hidden prison, the one you cannot see until it is pointed out to you, the one that keeps you collapsing the same reality again and again, while making you believe you are moving forward. Now ask yourself this: if you are collapsing your future right now, with every thought, every emotion, every breath, why does it keep looking like your past? Why does the new reality never arrive? Is it because the field is against you? Because you are not worthy? Because change is too difficult? No, the truth is simpler and sharper. Because you keep collapsing the same frequency unconsciously, and the field cannot give you what you are not broadcasting. So here is the question you must face. If the prison is this clear, if the evidence is everywhere in your life, why do most people stay trapped in it, even after they finally see it? If the prison is so obvious once revealed, why do so many people remain inside it? Why do they continue to collapse the same timeline, repeat the same cycles, even after they know exactly what is happening? The answer is the error that traps almost everyone. They mistake awareness for transformation. The illusion of progress. The moment someone sees the loop, something powerful happens. They feel relief. They feel clarity. They feel as if the simple act of recognizing the problem means the problem is already dissolving. And for a moment, it even feels true. The brain rewards this with dopamine, the chemical of pleasure. Suddenly, you feel like you are growing, but here is the trap. Awareness without change becomes another loop. You can stare at the prison bars all day long, describing them in detail, analyzing their shape, even memorizing every crack in the wall, and still be standing in the same cell. You can understand perfectly why your life feels repetitive and still wake up tomorrow, broadcasting the same frequency that recreates it. Most people stop at awareness. They confuse intellectual clarity with transformation, but clarity without. Embodiment is nothing more than another mask of the old self. The mask of knowledge. This is why self-help, spiritual teachings, and even quantum science so often become new prisons instead of liberation. People absorb information endlessly. They learn the language, observer effect, energy, alignment. They repeat the terms, they share them with others, and they convince themselves that this means they have changed. But information is not frequency. You can say, "I am free," 1,000 times. If your nervous system is still wired for fear, your signal is fear. You can say, "I am abundant," while your body is still addicted to the emotion of scarcity. You can repeat, "I am loved," while your subconscious still expects rejection. The words are new, but the frequency is not, and the field only mirrors the frequency. This is why so many people who study transformation for years still collapse into the same outcomes. Their lives don't change because their broadcast never changes. They become fluent in describing the prison, but never walk out of it. The addiction to thinking here is the cruelest part. The very tool that helps you understand the prison, your mind, is also what keeps you trapped inside it. The brain is designed to solve problems. That is its default function. The moment you see the loop, the brain leaps into action. I need to think harder. I need to analyze this more. I need to plan my way out. But the loop itself is made of thought, which means thinking harder about escape only deepens the pattern. It is like trying to put out fire with gasoline. The more you analyze, the more you reinforce the old neural pathways. The more you debate, the more you strengthen the vibration of doubt. The more you seek solutions, the more you broadcast the signal of, I am still trapped. The error is subtle but deadly, trying to think your way out of the frequency that thought created. The illusion of action. Another form of this error is mistaking activity for transformation. People become obsessed with doing. They try new techniques, new affirmations, new visualizations, new rituals. They convince themselves that as long as they are busy, they are evolving. But activity without state change is just another broadcast of the old self. Repeating positive affirmations while secretly feeling doubt doesn't rewire the field. It amplifies the conflict. Meditating while waiting for proof of change doesn't collapse a new timeline. It strengthens the signal of waiting. Even rituals, when performed mechanically, do nothing but reinforce the old identity. This is why so many feel exhausted by self-work. They are working hard, but they are working from the same vibration. And so the field keeps reflecting the same results. Why this error feels so convincing? If this trap is so destructive, why do people fall into it so easily? Because the illusion of progress feels safer than the risk of real change. Real transformation demands death, the death of the old identity, and the brain resists death at all costs. So it tricks you with something easier. Just keep learning, just keep thinking, just keep trying. It gives you the satisfaction of activity without the threat of actual transformation. You feel like you are moving forward while staying exactly where you are. This is why decades can pass without real change, even for people who have been working on themselves their entire lives. The sharp truth: here is the truth most people don't want to hear. The field doesn't respond to what you know. It doesn't respond to what you intend. It responds to what you are broadcasting now. And as long as the broadcast doesn't change, nothing else does. You can fill your mind with endless theories. You can understand every principle of quantum physics. You can memorize every spiritual teaching. And yet, the field will still collapse the same timeline if your frequency is unchanged. This is the error, the trap. The invisible lie that awareness equals freedom. The question that breaks the illusions. Ask yourself, how many times have you confused understanding for change? How many times have you told yourself you were different now, only to watch the same outcome return? How many times have you mistaken effort for embodiment or knowledge? For frequency, the truth is sharp but liberating. Awareness is only the beginning. If you stop there, you collapse the same loop endlessly. But if you move beyond awareness into embodiment, the entire field shifts instantly, which leads us to the question that matters most. If knowledge isn't enough, then what truly breaks the loop and collapses a new timeline? In the last chapter, you saw the error. The trap that holds people prisoner is mistaking knowledge for transformation, awareness for freedom. You now understand why repeating affirmations, collecting information, and thinking harder never change. The signal. The question becomes, if awareness isn't enough, then what truly breaks the loop and collapses a new timeline? The answer is this: your frequency must change, not in theory but in embodiment. Transformation happens when your state shifts so deeply that the field has no choice but to mirror something new. And that shift does not come by accident. It comes through method, not random activity, not endless searching, a deliberate practice of changing your broadcast at every level: mind, body, and spirit. So, how do you do it? How do you collapse a new timeline instead of repeating the old one? Here are the keys. Key 1. Interrupt the repetition. The loop survives because it goes unnoticed. The body wakes, the mind thinks, the emotions fire, all in the same rhythm. Every repeated sequence is a silent command to the field. collapse this timeline again. To break it, you must interrupt the rhythm. Science confirms this. Neuroscience calls it pattern interruption. When you deliberately change a routine, the brain is forced out of autopilot and begins to form new pathways. Neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to rewire, activates, and with it, the signal shifts. Spiritually, this is the essence of initiation. Every tradition, from shamans to mystics, used disruption to awaken consciousness. Fasting, silence, exposure to fire, cold, solitude, all were designed to break repetition and snap awareness into a new state. You don't need extremes to begin. You only need intention. Wake up at a different time. Move your body in a way it has never moved. Speak words you have never dared to say. Even the smallest conscious disruption is enough to tell the field, I am not repeating. But if breaking a routine can disrupt the old self, how do you make sure the body doesn't drag you back into the same emotional frequency? Key 2. Reprogram the emotional signal. The mind may repeat thoughts, but it is emotion that anchors the broadcast. Every old identity is tied to a feeling: fear, shame, anger, scarcity. The body becomes addicted to the chemistry of these emotions, flooding itself with the same hormones day after day. Science proves this. Emotions are biochemical. Fear releases adrenaline and cortisol. Love and gratitude release oxytocin and dopamine. These chemicals don't just color your experience. They are electromagnetic signatures that your heart and brain broadcast into the field. The HeartMath Institute has shown that coherent emotional states produce measurable fields extending meters beyond the body. In quantum terms, these fields are part of the signal collapsing your timeline. This is why positive thinking doesn't work. You can think a new thought, but if your body is addicted to fear, the broadcast is still fear. To shift the frequency, you must reprogram the emotion, not by suppressing it, not by running from it, by facing it directly, breathing through it, and teaching the body a new state. This is why breathwork, meditation, and prayer exist. They regulate the nervous system, dissolve the chemical addiction to the past, and open space for new emotional frequencies. When you breathe slowly and deeply, synchronizing heart and mind, the body generates coherence. That coherence becomes the new broadcast, and the field mirrors it immediately. But even if you change the emotional signal, what keeps the old identity from creeping back into the timeline? Key 3. Embody the new identity. Now, the loop feeds on identity. Every day you wake up as the old self, even while saying you want to change. You put on the same mask, think the same way, feel the same emotions, and the field hears one command only: collapse the old reality again. To break the cycle, you must embody the new identity now, not later, not once I see results. Now, quantum physics makes this clear. The field responds to the observer's state in the present moment. If you wait for evidence before you shift, you are broadcasting waiting, and the field mirrors it with absolute precision. But when you embody the new self now, the field collapses in alignment with that broadcast. Spiritual traditions call this living as if. Mystics didn't wait for proof to believe. They embodied devotion, gratitude, and freedom as present realities. And the world reshaped around them. Identity is not discovered, it is chosen. And once chosen, it must be lived. Speak differently, move differently, even breathe differently. Every I am you embody becomes a vote for the new self. But even if you choose a new identity, how do you lock it in so deeply that the subconscious cannot rebuild the old one? Key 4. Seal it with ritual. The subconscious is the true transmitter, and it does not change through ideas. It changes through repetition, symbol, and ritual. This is why fire has always been sacred, why chants, mantras, and symbols exist. Ritual bypasses logic and speaks directly to the subconscious. It makes the invisible tangible. Write down the beliefs of the old self and burn them. Speak the new identity every morning in a mirror, not as a wish, but as a declaration. Create daily anchors, a gesture, a phrase, a practice that mark the death of the old signal and the birth of the new. Science may call this habit formation. Spirit calls it initiation. Either way, the result is the same. The subconscious accepts the new frequency, and once it does, the old broadcast cannot return. But if rituals can anchor the frequency, what ensures that the new timeline doesn't collapse back under pressure when life tests you? Key 5. Sustain the collapse. Reality doesn't collapse once. It collapses continuously. Every second is observation. Every moment is choice. Which means transformation isn't about one powerful experience. It's about sustaining the frequency until the new timeline stabilizes. Science shows that neurons that fire together wire together. Each time you return to the new state, the brain strengthens it. Each time you embody the new emotion, the heart broadcasts it stronger. Each time you repeat the ritual, the subconscious accepts it more fully. Spiritually, this is discipline, devotion, the willingness to return again and again, even when it feels difficult, until the new identity becomes effortless. Most people fail here. They collapse a new reality for a day, maybe a week. Then, under stress, they unconsciously broadcast the old frequency again, and the field, with perfect precision, collapses the old timeline back into form. But if you sustain, if you keep interrupting, reprogramming, embodying, and ritualizing, the new frequency becomes stronger than the old. The old identity dissolves permanently, and the new timeline becomes your reality. The subtle truth. The field is not punishing you. It is precise. It collapses what you broadcast. And that means power has never been missing. It was always inside. Your frequency. The prison was never real. It was repetition. The error was never fate. It was confusion. And the method was never complicated. It was simply the choice to shift the signal again and again until the old self burns and the new self stands. The collapse is already happening. Every second is collapse. The question is, which timeline are you collapsing right now? If every second is collapse, then hesitation is not neutral. It is not empty space. It is not a pause where nothing happens. Hesitation is a signal. It is a broadcast. And the field listens to it with the same precision it listens to everything else. Every time you whisper later, the field collapses a timeline of delay. Every time you convince yourself with the thought not yet, the field mirrors it instantly, giving you more of the same hesitation in physical form. You may think you are buying time, but in truth, you are spending it. This is why so many people live in cycles of almost. They almost transformed. They almost started. They almost became the version of themselves that was waiting. But almost is still a collapse. Almost is still a signal. And reality reflects it back with brutal accuracy, shaping lives that never fully begin. The brain prefers this because it feels safe. Neuroscience shows that the brain is addicted to what is familiar, even if it hurts. Predictable pain feels safer than unpredictable freedom. So when you stand on the edge of transformation, the mind whispers, wait, think more, prepare better, you're not ready yet. It sounds reasonable, but it is fear dressed as logic. And every time you obey that voice, you collapse another future back into nothing. You erase another possibility that existed in the field a moment ago. Look back at your own life. How many chances have already vanished, not because they weren't real, but because you hesitated too long? How many relationships never grew because you silenced yourself? How many opportunities dissolved because you told yourself the timing wasn't right? How many versions of your life have died quietly in the field because you refused to choose them in the present? From the perspective of physics, nothing unusual happened. The field simply obeyed. Probability waves collapsed into the timeline you broadcasted. Hesitation, waiting, delay. And the longer you stayed in that frequency, the more stable that reality became. You didn't avoid collapse. You collapsed the old again. Spirit has always carried the same warning. Mystics spoke of hesitation as death. Sacred texts described delay as sin. And in science, the same truth appears under another name, inertia. An object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest. Hesitation is inertia. Without new force, nothing changes. The loop continues forever. This is why waiting feels poisonous. On the surface, it seems harmless, but underneath, it rots the future. Every moment you delay, you kill a timeline that was alive seconds ago. You don't lose futures because they weren't real. You lose them because you refuse to collapse them. So the real question becomes, how many futures are you willing to bury? How many times will you keep broadcasting "not yet" and then wonder why nothing new arrives? How many times will you keep collapsing hesitation and still expect freedom to appear? The collapse does not stop when you delay. It never stops. You are collapsing something every moment, even in silence, which means hesitation is not the absence of choice. It is the choice to repeat the past again. The signal is constant. The collapse is constant. The only decision is whether you will keep collapsing delay or finally collapse transformation. Right now, as you listen, the collapse is already in motion. You may think you are simply hearing words on a screen, but the truth is sharper. Your observation has already begun to change your frequency. In quantum physics, the act of observing shifts possibility into form. In spirituality, awareness is the first step of initiation, and you're doing both at this very moment. Notice it. Your breath is not the same as when you pressed play. Your body feels different, perhaps a tension in the chest, a subtle pressure in the stomach, or even a strange calm spreading through your skin. These are not accidents. They are signs that the old signal is weakening and a new one is trying to emerge. The loop fights back when it starts to die. Resistance is proof of collapse. For years, you thought transformation was far away, waiting in the future, something to be earned after enough effort or time. But the field does not work with time. It works with frequency. The moment your signal shifts, the timeline shifts. That is why you are here now. The simple act of receiving this signal is evidence that the new self has already begun to collapse into form. Spirit has always known this truth. Mystics described it as death and rebirth. Shamans spoke of fire that consumes the false. Saints spoke of silence that renews the soul. What they all meant is this: the old identity burns the moment you stop feeding it. The collapse is not a distant event. It is happening in real time. And you are in it right now. Look deeper. Can you feel the silence under your thoughts? That quiet space is not emptiness. It is the new frequency, steady, alive, waiting to expand. You don't need to force it. You only need to allow it. The collapse is already choosing for you. The only danger is pretending it isn't real. This is not motivation. This is not imagination. This is physics meeting spirit. Your observation is collapse. Your presence is fire. Your frequency is shifting in this exact moment, and the future is rewriting itself as you breathe. So the question is no longer, will the shift come? It already has. The only question is, will you accept the collapse of the old self, or will you resist it and try to rebuild what is already burning? The signal has reached you. You've felt it. The shift is already alive inside you. But signals fade if they are not anchored, and the loop will try to rebuild if you leave this moment without a declaration. That is why now you must act. Action is how you prove to the field that this wasn't just another moment of awareness. Action is how you collapse a new timeline instead of repeating the old one. So do two things to seal your frequency. First, write one word below: tuned. That single word is not for me. It is not for an algorithm. It is for you. It is your command to the field that the old signal is gone and the new one has begun. Second, subscribe. Not casually, not as a button click. Subscribe as alignment. When you join this channel, you are joining a frequency, a signal that will keep pulling you forward, reminding you again and again of who you really are. This is how you make sure the shift doesn't fade. This is how you surround yourself with the current that sustains the new self. Do this now. Seal it. Write your word. Subscribe to the signal and prepare, because this journey does not end here. The next video carries the continuation, the next transmission, the next initiation, the next frequency you are meant to embody. You did not find this channel. The channel found you. And now the field is asking, will you seal the signal? Or will you let the loop rebuild? The shift has already started. Make it permanent.